Hello, welcome to this plenary session on educating for inspiration on climate, beyond climate despair. My name is Eban Goodstein. I'm an economist and I direct the graduate programs in sustainability at Bard College in New York. And it's a real pleasure to be with you today, educators from across the world, addressing this really critical topic. Right now, negotiators are meeting in Egypt at COP27, and it's not clear that there's going to be great progress coming out of that meeting. And as educators, we are at an interesting moment, and I want to talk with you today with my colleagues about how we engage young people in the work, the tremendous work, the great work of stabilizing climate at a time when it can seem overwhelming. Actually, not only for students, but also for educators and faculty members. So that is the agenda for today. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Carla Panyella, who's a project coordinator at the Sustainable Development Goals Center for Latin America and the Caribbean at Universidad de los Andes in Bogota, Colombia, as well as Dr. Jason Ho, Senior Service Learning Consultant at the Center for Innovative Service Learning at the Hong Kong Baptist University. I'm going to speak first and lay out the opportunity for educators, the moment, and talk about the work that has actually brought me together with Carla and Jason, and work that we're going to invite you all to participate in, because I think the main lesson of today's conversation is that we are stronger together as educators in the work that we need to do. So I want to start with some good news about the future. And I think it's important to do this as we engage in education about climate, because it can be, the bad news can be overwhelming. And we need to help our students think about a future that welcomes them and some good features of the coming decades. And so one of the really good news pieces about the future is that we are soon going to be living in a world powered by abundant, cheap solar energy combined with battery storage. There'll also be other energy forms, wind and other forms, but solar is really going to dominate our future. And this is a big transition, right? For the last 120, 30 years, we've been burning things in centralized coal-fired or gas-fired power plants and sending electricity out through wires. We are moving to a new era where cheap solar power will be all over the world. It will be on our houses, on our vehicles, in our clothes, everywhere, on our farms, and it will be accessible to everyone. It will be in everyone's houses. And this is truly good news. It will do four very good things. It will solve climate change. It will clean the air in desperately polluted cities. It will end energy poverty. So there are still billions of people on this planet who do not have access to reliable power, and they're going to get it and have access to the same power that the rest of us have. And finally, the solar revolution, solar dominance, is going to break the back of the political monopoly over oil money that has so distorted politics in so many countries throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. The war raging right now in Ukraine, that is a war that is courtesy of the fossil fuel dependence of the planet. You know, that is a war that's 100% financed by control over oil money. So this transition to solar energy is going to do a lot of very good things for the world. It's coming inevitably. And the question, I guess, is it coming fast enough? Because while we can count on these technology headwinds, there is a short window of time to rewire the world with these clean energy sources. And so we desperately need an army or a giant community, a global community to solve climate change. That is the thing we need. And it's going to be a future created by everyone, by artists and engineers, by tradespeople and economists, by psychologists and chemists, business people, musicians, writers, farmers, a global community of people working to solve the climate crisis. And this is really the inspirational opportunity to help move our students beyond climate despair, is the opportunity to become part of this moment, this great moment, to do this great work to change the future. And so we need climate educators worldwide who can speak to this moment. The network that can help millions of students see a personal role in this great work of stabilizing the climate through a just and rapid transition from fossil fuels to this clean energy economy. This is important because right now, most of our students understand, if they care to, unless they're ideologically opposed, if they care to, they get the basic science of climate change. I mean, they understand that we're burning fossil fuels and wrapping the planet in a heat trapping blanket of gas. And they understand in general the impacts. They know there'll be droughts. They know there'll be floods. They know there'll be sea level rise. And it's very scary. It's anxiety provoking. It leads to despair because it seems impossible to solve. And yet, as I just suggested, we already have the tools to solve this. And I want to speak just for a moment about that. What's really driving the opportunity, the good future opportunity, is this process. So this is a graph showing the decline in the price of solar photovoltaic modules from 1976 to 2019. And it's just been a steady downward decline in prices. And if we zero in on 2014 to 2019, you can see that that price decline is just continuing. So solar power is cheap and getting cheaper. Right now, at the utility scale, it is the cheapest way to produce power in most of the world. And here in the United States, for example, natural gas, 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour, solar, wind, battery storage, 2 cents a kilowatt hour. It's being produced. We have bids for 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour. And there's no sign that this decline in prices is going to end, because we're just getting started with the research and development that's going to drive incredible innovation in this space and continue to lower the prices of these technologies. Now, of course, over the last year, with all of the supply chain shortages and the war and COVID, there's been an upward spike in solar prices, as there have been with everything else, including especially fossil fuels. But this underlying technology trend and economies of scale trend is going to continue, and it's going to make solar power incredibly cheap, incredibly soon. Now, the same thing is happening with batteries. And you need batteries with solar, because what are you going to do at night or when the sun's not shining? The combination of cheap solar, cheap wind, especially offshore wind in many places, combined with the growth of battery storage, has created a vision of the future, a good vision of the future, that is a fossil-free vision that leads to climate stabilization. Once again, we've seen a spike in battery prices because of the global supply shortages, but the fundamental trend here of declining prices and also innovation moving from lithium ion to sodium ion and other sources, it's overwhelming and it's unstoppable. So the point here is that sometime within the next 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years, every factory, every warehouse, business building, shopping center, house, parking lot, device, everywhere will have solar. It's coming. Will it come soon enough to stabilize the climate? The other piece, of course, here is vehicles. And once you have that clean energy, you can electrify your vehicle fleet. And this is happening very fast as well. China has a goal of 40% of new cars sold by 2030. we've got a Tesla in the United States selling for $50,000. We've also got an Alibaba electric vehicle selling for $3,500. So this is a rapid transition in our vehicle fleet, which again, this is going to clear the air, right? This is going to clean up the air pollution in so many global cities as we get away from internal combustion engines. So this is happening, and again, the big question is always, can we make it happen fast enough? All new vehicles sold will be electric. 50% of global electric power will be solar. And will it be fast enough to stop climate change? That is where educators come in, because we have to inspire the community of our students to be the energizers, the forces that drive this clean energy transformation across the world, because we know that climate change consequences are already with us. I know many of us have been thinking deeply about Pakistan and this incredibly hard thing that has happened to that country. Massive flooding, 30 million people affected by the flooding, in this case, 10 million refugees, 10 million people driven from their homes, unable to go back for months, their fields, their homes ruined, destroyed. And this is, along with the drought in Syria, probably the second big global climate event that we're witnessing. And it's coming everywhere. This summer, we saw major rivers all over the world, the Mississippi River, the Yangtze River, the Rhine River, literally drying up and making it possible for cargo shipping to happen, for example. And as I said, the COP meetings are happening now. We can't really look to the global UN governance system to solve this problem for us. It really has to come from the bottom up, and that means it has to come from us as educators engaging our students in the work to rewire the world with climate and clean energy solutions. So who are we? Who are we as climate educators? Well, some of us do this professionally. Some of us study climate change. Some of us research it. Some of us teach about it specifically in our classrooms. But that's not enough. That's not enough educators to reach the whole world of young people that we need to reach. And what's happening right now is that at every college, university, and K-12 school in the world, 50% of your colleagues, 70%, 90% of the teachers are growing deeply climate concerned personally. They are worried about the future for their own families, in addition to their students. And these are not climate experts. These are not people who are typically teaching about climate change in their classrooms, but they are a potential pool of climate educators. That because they are climate aware and they are climate concerned, we can mobilize them to also start to engage students in thinking about how to be part of this good work. And in order to make that possible, we have to build a global network of climate educators to support one another and provide each other models and ideas and resources to be able to reach out to not just the 20 or 30 students who might be studying climate change at our institutions, but the hundreds and thousands of students who can contribute to this transformation by being part of this army of writers and electricians and tradespeople and farmers and business people and lawyers who, because every job can become a climate job in some way or another. Every company has got to participate in the climate revolution. And so we have to engage all of our students in that idea. And we're stronger together. We collectively can reach out to our colleagues and engage them and inspire them to become climate educators. And fundamentally, we have the power to move students beyond despair and disengagement to excitement about this work of building a climate stable and a just and prosperous future. So let me speak briefly to the work we've been doing, and Carla and Jason will talk more about this specifically. But through the Open Society University Network and based at Bard College in New York, we have been organizing a worldwide teach-in on climate and justice. And by a teach-in, we mean a bottom-up educational event, a way of engaging educators at your community and having them in discussion and dialogue with students about the way forward, about the work that we can all do from our different disciplines, again, as chemists, as writers, as psychologists, as economists, to advance this cause of a clean energy future. And in March 2022, we had 350 colleges, universities, high schools, other organizations participating in climate education events, 50 countries, 50,000 people. And today I'm asking you for your help. And in March 2023, help us engage 1,000 schools and 500,000 students. Again, in this vision of the great work, of the coming generation. And we'll tell you how to get involved in just a moment. We're looking for you to step up and recruit a couple of colleagues, and on or around March 29th, it doesn't have to be that date, but sometime close to that date, to organize some kind of all-campus event. And we have lots of models of this on our website, many different ideas, and typically it involves reaching out to those climate concerned faculty, and you know there are many of them on your campus, and bringing them together in dialogue with students. And we have, again, models of that. We'd also ask you to push this into your classes in your universities in March under the hashtag Make Climate a Class, Clases por la Clima. We're going to try and get those climate concerned teachers, those historians and those anthropologists and those psychologists and those biologists who are not teaching about climate change in their courses to actually bring it in and talk for 15, 20 minutes about how people in their field, in their discipline, are engaging with climate solutions. So the students can begin to see, you know, I like economics, I could be a climate economist, or I like art, I could be a climate artist, or I like computer science, I could put those skills to work in support of this clean energy future that's going to stabilize the climate. We have a couple of different approaches, lots of models. We have a team. We're glad to talk with you one-on-one about how you can get involved. I'm going to show you now just a quick 1-minute video, actually, which I hope will inspire you to be involved.
Your role, like teaching, will mobilize the power of educators and students and empower a generation of fighting to stabilize the climate and advance climate justice.
We all need to get comfortable talking about climate all the time. The teaching helps us do that.
The worldwide teach-in is equal to organizing events on campus or community on or around March 29th, 2023.
Key to successful teaching is relying on homegrown talent, not outside experts. The more local educators you involve directly from your school or community, the more people will attend the event.
They will do this strategy because they are really worried about climate change, just like you.
Our team is here to support you, but you have to step forward. Join us.
Your role, like teaching, will mobilize the power of educators.
Well, we have a much longer version of that video, 10 minutes, that really goes into detail about how to do a teach-in, the different models, the resources available. So if you go to our website, you can enjoy the 10-minute version of the video. It's a good introduction to the project, and it'll give you some ideas and inspire you to get involved. So once again, I'm ending with an appeal, an ask for all of you to be part of this event, because really, what is the biggest threat to our future? Climate change, perhaps, but it's really that each of us thinking that somehow someone else will solve the climate crisis. Because we have the tools to stabilize the climate. We have those tools in our hands, but we need that army. And as educators, we are the people who can engage and mobilize that army. So please join the Worldwide Teach-In. And here is my email. I'm glad to have further conversations with anyone. I'll drop that in the chat as well. And now I would like to turn the conversation over to Jason Ho.
Thank you, Eban. Hello, everyone. Hi, friends and colleagues from all over the world. This is greetings from Hong Kong, from the Hong Kong Baptist University. This is Dr. Jason Ho from the Center for Innovative Service Learning. So thank you for the very detailed introduction from Eban, which I will be actually carrying over the conversation. We actually received that invitation from Eban and his colleagues, and our university and actually our center would like to join this worldwide teaching on climate and justice. So this is actually what we did. Similar to what Eban has mentioned just now, we sort of invited different faculty members from a wide range of departments and also very different disciplines to see if they have the interest to join this particular teaching, resulting in this subheading, Local and Global Perspectives from Hong Kong. Precisely because of this, we eventually managed to actually, in March earlier on, invite these panel members to join this particular panel in terms of sharing their different interests and also their different approach to look at climate changes and also climate justice for that matter. It is a very delightful surprise, precisely because actually quite some speakers here in their regular teaching, they did not really touch on issues on climate changes or environmental ethics. But seeing this particular potential panel, they all show their interest in this topic. So eventually, we have colleagues, as you can see from the PowerPoint slides, we have colleagues from departments of English, of government and international politics, and also on humanities and creative writing. So eventually, this panel was being formed. And this is how the way we worked. So I hope that this little example will actually provoke your interest in joining the teach-in 2023. For our case, actually the panel was embedded in one of the undergraduate classes offered by the Faculty of Arts. That particular class, that particular lecture is on environmental humanities with around like 50 or 60 students. So again, echoing what Eban mentioned, we hope to actually engage students in that particular dialogue. And also because that took place in March, in Hong Kong at that time, the pandemic was still quite bad. So the whole thing was done on Zoom virtually. But we really hope that if we are going to do the same thing again next year, we really think that that face-to-face interaction will be even better. So the whole thing actually start off with the teacher of that particular course inviting an interdisciplinary artist as a guest speaker. As you can see from the picture here, Miss Michelle Fong. She is actually a very interesting artist working on a lot of different environmental issues using art as an entry point. So I know some of our audience here might not be able to read Chinese. Actually, this is one of her art pieces saying that, wow, if animals can learn to eat plastic, I'm translating that directly. our children can do so, right? So obviously kind of like an irony casting upon the kind of plastic and also environmental pollution being done to our society and also our world currently. So this particular panel actually invite different speakers from different background and disciplines to share with students their own take, their own perspective on climate changes and also climate justice. So after Michelle Fong, we have Dr. Emily Chow from the Department of English, from our Department of English. So again, like what I briefly mentioned earlier on, the interesting thing here is actually Emily's research background was not directly related to climate change, but when we invited her, she began to see some kind of relevance between her own research interest, which is African literature, to the very subject matter of climate change. So you can see from this picture of her PowerPoint presentation, she was actually putting all those linkages between climate change and to use African literature as a tool to look at and actually interrogate the whole issue on climate change in relation to people, power, stories, etc. For those of you who are in literature, you should all know that narratives, storytelling is very important basically in narrating any form of discourses. So her part was very interesting. She actually wrapped up her whole discussion by reading out this very, very poetic text, a poem by this African writer, Picho, precisely on the narration of Mother Nature. So a very interesting sharing from her. After that, oh, by the way, this is just fun fact. In our panel, we have actually got coincidentally 3 Emilys with different spelling. All right, so this is Emily Tran from our Department of Government and International Studies. So from her perspective, she talks a lot on social policy. So she basically outlined what's going on very terribly in Hong Kong in terms of different types of pollution, water pollution, and also plastics, as you can see from our PowerPoint slide, and the list goes on. And she, of course, goes on and tell us what our government has been doing, has been introducing in terms of public policy, which is also a very important point to engage students in terms of letting them know more about what our local and also global governments have been doing to actually improve the situation of different types of pollution. So that will be the sharing from Dr. Emily Tran. And after that, comes myself and also the director of our center, Dr. Lisa Lam. Our center works on what we call service learning, so arranging students to do different types of community work. And one of them will be to engage them to work on environmental issues. So we share quite a number of examples from our previous service learning courses. For example, for this one, we'll be engaging secondary school students. We invite them to come to our university to work on different types of scientific experiments. And this will be one of our trademark courses from the Department of Chemistry. We actually arrange students to go to different NGOs to collect unsold bread from different bakeries. I'm not sure whether, I think this is kind of like a global phenomenon that actually when a lot of these bread shops close at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., a lot of bread still edible was simply thrown away. So this is, I will put it this way, a bigger issue in terms of not only climate changes, but really the kind of broader implication, for example, food shortage. After our sharing from our center came the last part, which is actually the teacher of that particular course that we embed this whole panel. Dr. Emily Song, whose research precisely is on environmental humanities. So she gave this very illuminating conclusion of what students within humanities and also beyond humanities and the Faculty of Arts can do to help elevate the problem of climate changes. So using what I mentioned just now, different types of history, aesthetics, etc. And I particularly like the way that she actually extend the whole discussion from climate to what we call environmental justice, which is a huge issue in relation to climate changes. And students later on actually have got a lot to say in relation to this particular topic, because for those of you who know something about Hong Kong, our poverty gap is really very serious. So we have got actually a lot of minority people living under very poor situations, things like this. And the whole thing definitely will be related to COVID-19 too. All right, so how we can keep people fed simply, right, within the coronavirus. So that's pretty much my sharing. Just one last slide, what we have been doing in terms of moving and also looking forward. At least two things. The one on the right will was also related to our the last speaker that I mentioned just now, Dr. Emily Song. Actually, after inviting her to this particular panel, we work really closely, and this particular exhibition was actually ongoing right now till next week. So for those of you who are in Hong Kong, you might be interested to actually come to visit our university on this particular exhibition, definitely in relation to climate change. And on your left, actually our center has also been working with different offices to work on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So I think this is also something very relevant and very pertinent to the discussion of climate changes. So that's pretty much my part. I will pass the time to another colleague, and she will continue, all right, with our discussion. Thank you very much.
Jason, thank you. Let me introduce Carla. Carla Panyella from the Sustainable Development Goals Center at the Universidad de los Andes. But let me speak just for a minute. Jason, you did a really good job in answering one of the questions that was in the chat, and please ask additional questions. But Rob Hollister asked, what are effective ways to mobilize climate educators who are non-specialists? And this is sort of the whole point of the teach-in, because as we heard, you know, we can have someone who specializes in African literature who really doesn't specialize in climate change in African literature, but can easily find some African literature that relates to that and bring that into the classroom. And the point here is that climate change really does touch every subject, every discipline. And this is a feature of kind of the conversation we've been having at the Worldwide Teach-In. Any teacher in the world, no matter what, whether they're teaching geometry or religious studies, can find an entry point into this dialogue and point out to students who might be passionate about literature, or who might be passionate about mathematics, that those tools can be used and need to be used in the movement to build the clean energy future. So there is an entry point for any teacher in the world who wants to talk with their students about climate change, even though they're non-specialists. So with that, let me turn it over to Carla Panyella and thank her for being with us.
Thank you, Eban, and thank you, Jason, for the invitation to participate in this panel. My name is Carla, and I'm working in the SDG Center for Latin America and the Caribbean. The SDG Center for Latin America and the Caribbean was launched in 2018 in Universidad de los Andes in Colombia to strengthen training and research in sustainable development in the region. With the creation of the center, the university sought to promote regional development by providing solutions to the challenges of growth and conservation that face the country and the region. Likewise, we want to promote the training of leaders and researchers on these issues and influence the discussions and definition of public policies in Latin America and the Caribbean countries. As part of the vision, the center also seeks to strengthen alliances with institutions of higher education of excellence through regional cooperation mechanisms to encourage research, share of knowledge, raise awareness within students, and influence debates and public opinion from a perspective of the Latin American, the Caribbean countries. The institutions that are part of the alliance of the SDG Center for Latin America and the Caribbean are Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico, Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México in Mexico, Universidad del Pacífico in Peru, Universidad del Norte and Pontificia Universidad Javeriana in Colombia, and University of West Indies in Jamaica. The center also has 4 strategic lines of action. The first one is research, the second is education, the third one is to construct data to contribute to design mechanisms that will improve decision making, and the fourth is incidents to influence and impact public and private spheres through communication. All of this with a clear focus on understanding the synergies and the trade-offs in between the SDGs that are in the 3 pillars of development, taking in consideration environmental, social, and economic areas. And here I'm presenting the first year that we participated in this initiative, in the Solve Climate by 2030 initiatives. It aroused a lot of interest in many universities in the region, since this is an important issue for the education of students of the region, represented by various courses and programs through all the universities that I mentioned before, and even more that participated. Specifically, for the first year in 2021, we implemented 20 discussions in 10 countries in which more than 6,400 people participated. And the webinars covered a wide variety of approaches to climate action. In these conversations, they emphasize the importance on undertaking global actions to recover local problems linked to the climate crisis and stimulate activism and leadership on environmental issues in universities. The second year of implementation as the SDG Center of Latin America and the Caribbean, as the regional hub for Latin America and the Caribbean, we celebrated 18 webinars from more than 20 organizations in 10 countries, with the participation of more than 4,400 participants in various webinars and even in-person activities in the campus of the universities. In these conversations, we emphasize the importance on activism, leadership, and cooperation on environmental issues between society and organizations. And the conversations held around climate action, covering climate justice. The conversations happened in COP26, and also challenges in education. All of this experience through the 2 years that the SDG Center participated in the initiative gave us an idea on how universities are tackling climate change through education in the region. And there are some thoughts to improve climate action and education in a transversal and multidisciplinary way. The first is that there is a huge need to treat the topic in a multidisciplinary and transversal way, making sure that students develop complex and critical thinking. This way, they will be able to understand the urgency of the situations that happen in the local level and that also affected the global level, and they will want to be inside these conversations to find joint solutions at all levels, and this gives them also tools to battle climate despair. And the second is that education institutions need to work on including this conversation at all levels of the entity, independently of the agenda of a specific teacher. This way, education institutions could become a living laboratory where Discourse is transformed into action and permeates all areas of the university. So the 2030 agenda and the SDGs are important for all the processes and all the activities that are taking place in the university. Also, climate change needs to be addressed from a climate justice perspective, emphasizing that the historically most vulnerable populations will be the most affected by the phenomenon. And we need to keep in mind the slogan and this important phrase that we need to work and try to not leave no one behind. And universities need to continue their work as a role models on how collaborative action can impact global challenges, transcending borders in a cross-cutting way. Working together on these challenges can lead to find innovative ways to address the phenomenon at a social, economic, and political level. And last but not least, students need to create their own narratives around climate change, finding new ways to work on the topic, leveraging on ethics and philosophy. Students need to understand that they can be active actors for the change we need through their personal choices and aiming to work towards the 2030 agenda independently from their background or their studies. So each of them understand they can contribute to achieve the goals established in this agenda and contribute to support the adaptation and mitigation of actions to support climate action. So this is our presentation from the SDG Center for Latin American and the Caribbean from Universidad de los Andes, and our experiences through 2 years of implementation of the worldwide teaching. And we are really, really happy to be participating in the next year version and encouraging a lot of institutions around the region to participate in the event next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carla, for all of your leadership and all your work in the Latin America and Caribbean region. I would like to welcome questions from the audience. Please just enter them in the chat. Let's talk, Jason and Carla, for a minute about recruiting other people to do this work. You've all been leaders in your region. And the theory of change here is that there are many faculty members who are growing deeply climate concerned. They're anxious, and we hope to be able to tap into that energy and invite them to take on a role as a climate educator. Now, that's a good theory. What has been your experience, receptivity? Are people eager to do this, or do you have to drag them along? How do you find them? What is the most effective way to engage educators at your institutions and others in this kind of work?
Well, for me, it wasn't very difficult to make sure professors and students and different researchers from university, because they're really interested on how they can contribute to climate action. So it wasn't a problem for me to find different persons that wanted to be part of this global initiative, because as you said, even this is the time we have the tools, we all together have to work towards climate action and adaptation and mitigation, and finding solutions together to implement in the local and in the territories. I had a lot of experiences trying to make other organizations around Latin America and the Caribbean, and what it worked for me is first doing a specific research on what kind of organizations might be interested in working in this initiative, then contacting them personally and making sure I have availability of time to make a one-on-one meeting so I can make a quick conversation with them and try to empower them and make sure they feel the need and the urge to participate. That is how we achieved that 20 organizations in the LAG region participated in the first and in the second year, being really perseverant and insistent and that this initiative is a global initiative that puts together a lot of people and emphasizing the importance of taking SDG 17 in mind. No, alliances are really important to achieve the goals. So that's what I implemented in the region.
So you're saying you can't just send out an email with the instructions and everyone's going to show up and participate. It really does require kind of old-fashioned, one-on-one conversations with people to inspire them and help them understand the idea. I don't know, Jason, did you find similar output or challenges?
For our case, because it was our first time to do this kind of teaching. To be very honest, at the very beginning, we were not very sure because, faculty members are like always super busy. But like what I mentioned in my short sharing, it was a really delightful surprise because actually we did it in like 2 ways. At the very beginning, we sent out like mass emails to all those faculty members who have been working with us. But at the same time, we also contact those who have been working really closely with us, those that we know that they have already been showing a lot of passion and actually empathy to a lot of these issues in relation to climate changes, environmental ethics, etc., etc. So the delightful surprise will be when they got back to us. Actually, I still remember, for example, for Dr. Emily Chow, whose interest is in African literature. She wasn't very sure because she said basically she knew nothing about things like climate changes, etc. But the good thing is, as she went back to her own research area, she actually saw a lot of echoes and resemblance going on between, for example, African literature and climate changes. So that in one way or another also answered one of the questions that we received. I was like, even for faculty members whose research or teaching area have got nothing, literally nothing in relation to climate changes, they are actually able to do something because I believe this particular topic is in itself having that sort of interdisciplinary essence. So I really believe after this teaching experience, basically any faculty member can do something to engage students. And the other thing is students' responses were very good as well. They told us that at the very beginning, they didn't really pay a lot of attention to climate issues, but after listening to what the panel members have to say, all of a sudden they find out that, wow, indeed, our government has been doing something to elevate climate changes. For those students who are interested in literature, they find out that, wow, I have never imagined that studying arts, studying humanities can also contribute to something in relation to building a more sustainable future, etc., etc. So for us as a first timer, we think that the outcome is really, really great.
I reached out to a music professor who doesn't do anything around climate change to ask him to be part of the teach-in. And I said, what's really interesting about the climate movement worldwide is they don't have a song. And my experience with movements around the world, the labor movement, the civil rights movement, is they always have a song that people can sing to bring them together and inspire them. And there isn't one in the climate movement. There just doesn't exist one. And so that really intrigued him. And so he spoke for 5 minutes about the importance of movement songs and the absence of one in the climate change movement. But let me just get to that sort of organizing point. We had 20 faculty at our teach-in last year talking, from their own disciplines about these issues, and a couple of hundred students, and it was very good. So this year, again, our goal is to push it into the classroom. So rather than have the faculty come together for an evening, let's have the faculty talk about it in their classes, because that way we can reach lots more students. In order to do that, I first sent out an email to all of the faculty, and then I went to the faculty meeting and got up on the floor of the faculty meeting and announced that this is what we're trying to do. And then I wrote an email to the 20 faculty who participated last year and asked them to participate. And so far I've gotten like 5 or 6 responses. And so I know I have to actually individually reach out to all of those professors and bring them in. And get them to say yes and commit, and they will, because they care. They're busy, but I need to get their attention. And if I do that, if I get 20 BARD faculty to each talk about climate change in their classes, then we're going to talk to 2,000 students. And so yeah, that's going to take an hour of my time. But what a good hour, right? I spent an hour of time reaching out to individual faculty member. And that results in 2,000 students getting inspired about their discipline. So I think if you want to be involved in building this work, you recognize that it does require that outreach. You have to do that. People really are glad to hear from you. They appreciate it, they care, but they need to be, they have to be grabbed and told you need to participate, and then they will. But it doesn't take that long. And I think that's important. I want to stress that you can organize one of these teach-ins as part of your life, because we're all busy. We all have many teaching obligations, many research, many service obligations, but you have to find the time. This is, as I said, the biggest threat to the future is thinking that someone else is going to do this. And if you're attending this session and you are committed and you care about climate change, then you have to take the time to be a leader and help other people along this journey. Looking for questions from the audience. Not seeing any. Any other thoughts, Carla or Jason? I want to share our map, our interactive map, before we leave, but I wanted to, any other thoughts coming to mind?
Maybe even let me add on to what you mentioned a minute ago about all the coordination, because I really hope that our audience here today, like what even you mentioned, if they are joining this session, I hope that they will be joining us for the teaching in 2023. Guess what? Actually, the coordination is not that difficult or not that complicated. Like what Eban mentioned, let me put it this way. For those who have shown some initial interest, I'm sure they don't mind doing some sort of extra work. Precisely because for our case, because we work in service learning and we contact a lot of teachers who have already been working in this particular area. They are faculty members who are interested in community work, in outreaching, in talking to NGOs and social enterprises. So these are faculty members who are already interested in this kind of issues. So my 2 cents, my one piece of advice will be, if you're starting off as a first timer, maybe to reach out to those faculty members whom you know are already into issues like this. It might not be directly related to climate changes or sustainability, but at least to some sort of broader issues like doing service, doing community work. And I think they will be pretty much attracted to do some sort of things like this. Yeah, my 2 cents.
Carla, what do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I want to let people know too that it's really important to involve the students in these activities. So it's not only reaching for the teachers, also reaching to the students that maybe they are organized, they have their own little or not little organizations around climate action in the campus or around the city maybe. And involve them in this, because maybe it is also interesting. In the university, we implemented one webinar with the teachers, with 4 teachers of different disciplines talking about climate action, but we also made a webinar with students, with social leaders, student leaders that wanted to work towards climate action. And this is also really interesting because students can relate very well, and they can see them as role models. And I think it's interesting not only for the university students, also for K-12, for the students that are in the last years of high school, to see and to have this perspective that they will get into the university, they will be part of a community, and they will be able to work around these topics from a lot of disciplines. And one thing that even said a lot during this coordination and preparation is that to make sure students know that they can contribute to climate change, even if they study music. They can be music and work towards climate change. It doesn't matter what background you're from, and this is something really important, so next generations know that you don't have to study climate, or you don't have to study in the faculty of science to have something to say about climate action, because it's important to gain consciousness that our actions, our personal actions, also have an impact in achieving climate action and all the other 16 SDGs. So I think this is something to emphasize, that we have to make sure students get involved in the coordination and in the implementation of activities around the worldwide teaching.
Yeah, we need to create, I mean, there are many students who are fabulous climate educators. So not only do we need to mobilize faculty and staff as climate educators, we need to mobilize students as climate educators and help them talk with their peers and build excitement and engagement around changing the future, instead of being mired in despair, anxiety, and disengagement. Let me just end. Can I share my screen, please? I just want to end with a couple of images to help people understand where we are. So this is our main website. It's just worldwideteachin.org. And this is where you would learn more about the project. We have Spanish, Arabic, French, Portuguese versions of this. Here is our 10-minute video right here, which tells all about the project, and you can learn more about it. Then you would need to just register your event, sign up for more information. And if you click this registration button, it will pull up our map. So this is the map for 2023. You can see it's not full yet. And if you're inspired to participate in the teach-in, please go to this map today, plant a flag at your university. You do not need to say what you're going to do. All this indicates is that you're planning to do something. I am today at the American University of Central Asia here in Kyrgyzstan. They have a map on the calendar. So if I click on that, it says that AUCA is going to do something. They don't specify what it is, lots of blank fields. They can go in and fill this in later. But we really need your bubble on the map. We need to know your university is part of the worldwide teaching, or your K-12 school, or your high school. And we need to fill this map up. We need to get 1,000 bubbles on this map, and that is our agenda. So please help us do that. We meet once or twice, actually, every Wednesday, every Wednesday, we meet via Zoom, and please join us to learn more about the project. We bring on educators talking about K-12 education, talking about university education. And if you go to the menu here, events, and you click on events, you can register for our Wednesday sessions here, get the links, and get involved with us. So Thank you to Jason and Carla for your leadership regionally, and thank you to everyone else who is listening and thinking about this moment. We are at an extraordinary, truly extraordinary moment in the history of the human species. We do have 10, 20, 30 years to change the future. But once that time period is gone, it's gone. As a consequence, as educators, there really is nothing more important for us to do. In spite of all the other things we have to do, there is nothing more important for us to do than inspire our students to be part of this army of change agents. We are here to support you, to help you. Please reach out to the worldwideteachin.org. And thank you to USR Summit for organizing this wonderful conference. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.